Thanks, Wilson. And as Wilson mentioned, we have Ruben from Zcoin.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone for coming. My name is Ruben. I am the project steward of Zcoin. So basically what that means is, well, we don't have a CEO and I guess we see ourselves as custodians of the project because we're a decentralized project, and hence the kind of strange title. But let's go a bit into what Zcoin is. So first of all, we are a privacy-focused coin. We have been around since September 2016. We were the first ones to actually come up or made the use of Zcoin. So we first implemented it. And it was actually the first privacy mechanism that allowed people to destroy their coins and then redeem them for brand new ones, which was a pretty novel solution right back then, especially when I think then it was basically only Ring CT and stuff like CoinJoin. We are currently using something called Sigma, which is actually based off a paper called One of Many Proofs. And it's actually an improved version of Zcoin that doesn't have trusted setup, and proof sizes are a lot smaller. We are also the creators of this Lelandus, which is our next generation privacy protocol, which has actually gotten a lot of good feedback from the academic community, and it's actually inspired quite a few other privacy protocols, which we'll go into a bit later. We are a global team of around 15 people. I mean, these are the people that are, I would say, core-ish. We have 9 developers, 2 cryptographic researchers, and 4 guys that help around with operations and community management, including myself. So just a quick, overview of how our privacy works for those who are, new to Zcoin. We basically allow people to burn coins. We generate a zero knowledge proof that you burn those coins. And what that means is that after you burn your coins, you can actually redeem them for brand new ones that have no previous transaction history. And how you get this right to generate these brand new coins is that you present this receipt or a zero knowledge proof that you did indeed burn the coins before, without showing which coins you actually burnt, the exact coins that you burn. We can even actually pass the right to redeem these coins to someone else, so you don't even have to redeem them. We'll talk about that a bit later. Unlike other competing solutions, such as ZK Snarks used in Zcash, we don't have a trusted setup. We don't have a very exotic curve elliptic curve pairings, and it's a relatively simple construction, so it allows a lot more people to verify it, and we're not using moon math. And I guess a very easy way to kind of illustrate this on how our privacy works versus stuff like Monero, Mimblewimble, CoinJoin, is that, imagine if you're going on the beach, you're leaving footprints, that's like a trail. That's kind of like, what Bitcoin is, except those trails are permanent. How these other types of systems, which we call decoy based, are basically like putting footprints around your trail so that it kind of obscures that trail. But our approach is a bit different, right? It's in the kind of when you add all those footprints, you are kind of obscuring or obfuscating your trail, but the real trail is still there, and that has certain privacy problems, which is beyond the scope of this talk. While our approach, where you are burning and then redeeming with coins with no link, and it's coins that have no previous transaction history whatsoever, the link is completely broken, so your trail is akin to having a wave wash over it and it's all gone. So that's an easy way to take a look at it. We have achieved quite a few things since our launch, because we launched in 2016. We were the first ones to implement Dandelion plus privacy on the network layer. One of the really cool things that, I think we are really proud about is our blockchain was actually used in a Thai Democrat Party election, a nationwide Thai Democrat Party election. And that actually conducted the world's first large-scale political election with 127,000 votes cast. So that's a pretty significant thing. I don't think any other blockchain has actually achieved this type of adoption in terms of on-chain voting or blockchain elections. We've done a lot of research and privacy related stuff, but I wouldn't bore you on that. But recently, we are still continuing to release research and also implement them. As you can see, just in April, we further improve on our privacy protocols. So what do we have that we can look forward to, right? And basically, we are set to release deterministic Z-nodes and long-lived masternode quorums. So this is basically adopted from Dash, but it's actually pretty fancy, but it works more on the back end. But it actually creates infrastructure that would allow us to employ technologies such as chain locks and instant send. Chain locks is pretty important because it protects our chains against 51% attacks. And how it does that is by utilizing the Z nodes to add as an additional layer that prevents conflicting transactions from going in. Now, this is also particularly important because we are kind of like ASIC resistant mineable coin. And what that means is that while that makes it more accessible for people to mine using their home hardware, that also makes it easier to rent a hash rate to attack our coin. And, similarly, they're not looked into to mining your coin. That hash rate can shift between any coin that uses a GPU or stuff like that. So this type of technology is pretty important. And we think it's a good balance of having accessibility of mining while maintaining high security guarantees. We're going to be having a mobile wallet with our Sigma privacy, and that's actually awaiting approval from Edge. Hopefully we get that out sometime this month. That is actually going to be privacy on by default. So that's pretty exciting. Right now you have to use the desktop wallet. So having this in a mobile wallet, it's really good. Now, we also have receiver address privacy. And what that means is it's kind of a stealth address. But what it actually does is that it's actually an implementation of BIP 47. What that means is that it works with light wallets. You don't have to keep the entire blockchain. So there are certain efficiency benefits of that. And we hope to get that in the next 1 or 2 months. The code is actually ready, but we kind of need to wait for the deterministic Z-nodes to come on just to reduce moving parts. Lelantus is it's the biggest milestone that we have. It's probably going to be the biggest upgrade that we have in Zcoin's history. It is our own homegrown privacy protocol, and it solves a lot of the problems with existing privacy protocols. And we'll talk more about this later. And Elysium is something also quite novel in the sense that we allow people to build tokens on top of Zcoin. And this is actually the work on it is actually kind of complete, but we are actually waiting for some previous updates to go ahead before we deploy it. And the beauty about this is that we're not going to try to challenge like Ethereum and all these other types of Raven that are really, really focused on asset tokenization or, launching tokens. But the idea of Elysium is to allow people to build their own privacy tokens with our Sigma privacy support, which has really good use cases. Like you want to conduct your own anonymous but verifiable voting system, you can do that on our blockchain, and you don't need a new coin or anything like that. Or if you want to bridge coins from, let's say, USDT to Zcoin and use it as like a private version of USDT, that is something like we're trying to work on, and that will be also pretty exciting. So we see it more as a infrastructure layer for privacy that other people can use as well. Now, this is Lelantus. Lelantus is our homegrown privacy protocol. It has pretty huge anonymity sets. Basically, it can be up to like 65,000 or so, which compares quite favorably to other privacy protocols, with the exception of Zcash. It actually allows us to hide amounts and also to have direct anonymous payments. And what that means is that amounts are hidden, the source is hidden, and it offers, I think almost comparable types of privacy to like Z to Z transactions in Zcash. Now, the beauty of Lelantis is, you may take a look and say, oh, right, the performance is not as close to ZK Snarks, but we achieve a very similar feature set. But we do this without any sort of fancy cryptography. We have no trusted setup. We only use DDH cryptographic assumptions, and we have a really simple cryptographic construction, or at least relatively speaking, because one of the important things is that if you want people to trust your privacy protocol, people need to be able to verify it. And obviously, if the system is simple, the math is well understood, then much more people can verify it rather than relying on a single entity for updates. Lelantis is also pretty important because this is the first time we'll be moving into kind of like a privacy on by default model, but we probably call it privacy opt-out, in the sense that all our official wallets will be using Lelantis privacy by default. But, if you want to click on some settings, or for those existing legacy wallets that do support the transparent transactions, that is still supported. So there's some like reasoning behind that, especially, as a relatively smaller project, exchanges may be reluctant to adopt our privacy protocol. So we intend to take a phased approach where we increase the anonymity set by, making lots of people use it by default. And if exchanges wish to use it, wish to use it, or existing ecosystems, they can use the transparent transaction still. Now, Lelantis is also pretty interesting because it is not just within our Zcoin ecosystem. Beam has actually recently, gone live with their Lelantis Mimblewimble. Oh, it's actually only going live in June. So it's a modified version of Lelantis that works with Mimblewimble, and Monero as well in an attempt to try and scale their ring sizes, have also used some of the concepts of one out of many proofs in their new privacy protocol called Arcturus. So we're moving into funding. Okay. And basically, right now, this is, we have a halving coming in September. And originally, the original plan was, for all the founders and seed development to cease after 4 years. And it was just meant to be like 70% miner and 30% Z nodes. We talked to the community. I think it was like a year-long period of consultation, actually more than a year. And we, after a year-long period of consultation, community meetings, people said that, look, we want continued development funding. And as you can see in the post-halving, there is a 15% part of the block reward that goes to us, but it is subject to certain restrictions, which we will talk about later. Now, this looks like a huge increase from 6% to 15%, but the effective increase is on the top. If you see, it's not that much, but because of the halving effect, it looks like a bigger percentage, a bigger amount. So miners get 50%, Z nodes get 35%, and development is 15%. But anything that, let's say, if the price of Zcoin goes up really, really high, then the excess will be put into a reserve fund, which is the topic of the next slide. So the idea was that, because we want to be a decentralized project, right? And in a sense, development reward is kind of like a crutch, because yes, it does align the interests of the developers with the project. We don't have like huge amounts of money that we can dump in it, and we are incentivized to keep developing to increase the value of this Zcoin. But at the same time, we have seen many other projects when, suddenly, let's say, the project goes 10 times or so. What happens then is that, the teams get hit with a huge influx of money, and, there's questions as to how equitable that is, right? So we aim to kind of like cut the balance that, we need funding to continue development, but at the same time, we want the community to be able to weigh in on how this excess funds should be used. And so the Zcoin Reserve Fund was created over that. And what that means is that any excess over 100,000 per month will go into a separate fund called the Reserve Fund. And the Reserve Fund can only be used in very sort of specific circumstances. That means, to pay for Zcoin bug bounties, for code audits, or let's say, if the price of Zcoin drops very significantly, that, the core team requires some funds to kind of top up the shortfall. And of course, if there's anything that like the community really, really wants, we have to go through a period of consultation and see, okay, look, let's have this reserve funds to be used. So the idea is that not to give the core team free rein and to start educating and creating leaders from the community to start decentralizing the funding and development of the project. Now, this cap of $100,000 a month is increased 4% per annum just to cover inflation. And of course, it can be reviewed, but it would be a long process. And we see as a nice balance between decentralization and about making sure that we have enough funds to continue our project. We've also been exploring other sources of funding through like Open Collective, which has been quite nice. People can donate on monthly and get certain perks. It's kind of like a Patreon for open source projects. And we've been using that to pay for some of our infrastructure, like server costs and stuff like that. And we also have a Zcoin crowdfunding system, which is pretty interesting, where people can pitch ideas, and if the community likes it, it can proceed to funding. We have actually completed quite a few ZCS funded items, mainly on the improvement of the Electron wallet, which is our fancy wallet. And now we are seeking funding for our Lelantis audit, and we're seeking to raise about $64,000. So we kind of have like 24 people donating to that cause. Yeah, we're still a bit off our mark, but it's pretty encouraging to have the community contribute. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. You can find out more on our website, our Telegram channel, and I'll be taking questions.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Ruben. So first question from the audience. So how does Zcoin fit within the privacy landscape? I think also kind of a related question that I had is, what is the importance of not having a trusted setup? I think that'd be good to kind of like flesh out for the audience.
Sure. So a trusted setup is basically, the way I kind of like to make an analogy, is kind of like Lord of the Rings, right? When you're creating this powerful thing, you generate the rings, but there's this one ring to rule them all, so you have to destroy that ring, right? A trusted setup ceremony, basically, you're creating certain parameters and you have to destroy those parameters. And you have to trust that it was done correctly to destroy those parameters. If the parameters aren't destroyed, it's effectively kind of like a backdoor into the system where you can invisibly create new coins out of thin air. So this is obviously not a great thing. And we don't need a trusted setup and don't need fancy setup ceremonies that we've been seeing in ZK Snarks. And yeah, so how does Zcoin fit within the privacy coin landscape? What gives an edge over projects like Zcash and Monero? As you said, with Zcash, they have really good technology. I'm not quite sure why they haven't gone to like a privacy on by default model. But even just from a technologically standpoint, one of the issues with Zcash is the trusted setup and the really, really complex math that goes behind it. And they become very, very reliant on the ECC, which means that, how you view decentralization on that. And because there's so many moving parts in this type of cryptography, it's easy to get stuff wrong. I don't have anything against them. I think it's worthwhile to explore different ways to get at privacy. And with Monero, I think they have very good practical privacy, but the privacy that Ring-CT kind of affords is basically the anonymity set of each transaction is like 10 to 11 per transaction, which isn't a lot. While with us, you can have the anonymity set of like 64,000. So that's several magnitudes above what Monero can provide if our transaction protocol is used.
Gotcha. That definitely makes sense. Just another one kind of related. what do you see the value of having privacy at the base layer versus say at like the application layer and like an Ethereum protocol? I guess kind of the question is, you know, some people would like to suggest that privacy is a feature, not a product. And I guess what is the kind of counter argument to that thesis?
No, that's a great question. I believe like multi coin caps or those people, they were like saying that, privacy, should not be a product in itself. Ethereum is developing privacy solutions, and Bitcoin and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's a good point. But I think there's even like recent studies that show that you can't actually tack on privacy to like if you want like. Privacy is not just a small component. It's a very holistic component. You need network layer, a big chain layer. And to do that in an ecosystem where you have all these other moving parts and you have like scalability to think about, interoperability to think about, is quite difficult. And although Ethereum has stuff like Tornado Cash and whatnot, it's kind of like I have to go into a special smart contract, do my stuff, and then go out, right? And what that means is that first of all, you're kind of making people use your privacy in separate anonymity sets. And, when you go in, when you go out, there are also like potential privacy leaks as well. Along with, I guess, the entire design of it has to be like privacy and secure by design rather than, okay, I'm going to add this on top. So I do think that it's great that other like big projects are implementing privacy on their layer, and it does afford better privacy. But if you really want like really, really good privacy, if you want like no leakages, hopefully like coins like ours, where all our focus is on privacy, especially if you believe in the importance of like a decentralized coin that's uncensorable, unseizable, you really, really need high levels of privacy. And we are seeing this battle being waged today. Yeah. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, to totally hear you on the idea of looking at privacy holistically and making it a focus rather than something that's just, a feature that you kind of just, go in when it's convenient. But yeah, I think, great presentation coming up on the end. I guess kind of to repeat again, where can people find out more about Zcoin and yourself?
Sure. I mean, we have that slide up at zcoin.io. We have a very active Telegram and Discord community. It's all there. And I guess if we have time, I just want to answer Wilson's question on the regulators and privacy coins.
Sure. We have about a minute if you can fit it in.
Right. Okay, so just very quickly, I mean, this is a growing concern, especially like you're seeing some exchanges, especially in South Korea and other places, are starting to delist privacy coins. Well, first of all, the FATF travel rule has nothing to do with privacy coins. It applies to all coins, and privacy coins can actually be compliant. There's no special thing that is required there. Of course, we are still exploring like DEXs and stuff like that. But at the moment, I think there are still countries and still jurisdictions that really respect privacy as a human right. So I think it's a matter of education that, privacy is not just for illegal activities. It's actually a basic human right, especially when you start seeing countries come up with their CBDCs, their central bank digital currencies. And when you're talking about financial surveillance or like governments having control over your money, I think that's a really, really important thing. And hopefully people realize that. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, appreciate the answer. And thanks for tuning in. And thanks, Ruben, for speaking.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, everyone.